Fox's X-Men based TV show, The Gifted, finished up its first season in January. So we're going to talk about that first season in this episode of Legends of Podcasting. Now, joining me in the Wave Rider as usual are
Stuart, Rob,
and Ross.
And I'm Liam. And remember, if you like this show, you can find us anywhere where podcasts live. Subscribe to us, look for us. And also, we're across social media. Just look for Legends of Podcasting. So let's start the show.
During the 21st century, comic books conquered the world and murdered everyone's spare time. I have assembled an elite team to hunt comic book stuff down throughout media and to cover their rise to power. Unfortunately, my plan is opposed by general life obligations, meaning instead of daily, we can do this weekly, thanks to something we have sworn our allegiance to: time management. In the future, we ourselves may not be heroes, but if we succeed, we will be remembered as the Legends of Podcasting.
Reed and Caitlin are two normal suburban parents whose lives get thrown into chaos when they discover that their children possess mutant powers in The Gifted. Teens Lauren and Andy are involved in an incident at their high school which reveals their mutant powers to the world, forcing their parents to flee their old lives in order to protect their children. The Strucker family goes on the run from the government agency, the Sentinel Services, which includes Agent Jace Turner, who is determined to protect the rest of the population from mutants. And things are made even more complicated by the fact that Reed is a prosecutor in the district attorney's office tasked with going after mutants, which is why his children hid their powers from him for as long as possible. But with the family on the run, their only hope comes in the form of an underground network that helps mutants in trouble. And it's full of mutants dealing with their own issues. So that was the synopsis that went with the first season of The Gifted, which is Fox's latest attempt at doing a TV series based around the X-Men franchise, but without featuring the X-Men. So Rob, why don't you tell me, you finished this show just the other day as well, just like myself. I was a little bit behind with it this time. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much TV out these last couple of months. I've only just gotten bored with The Gifted, thanks to Ross's and Stu's recommendations. I thoroughly enjoyed the show. It's really well done, really grounded look into the X-Men universe without actually including the X-Men. And obviously, I mean, I don't think you really need to with go into who the mutants and X-Men are. Obviously, there's such a large cultural zeitgeist around them with the films and the comics, everything else like that. It's just good to see this kind of mutant thing being taken in a different direction. Yeah,
I thought it worked. It worked very well. They did a really good job at making a mutant-focused TV show without needing the X-Men. I mean, this show doesn't need the X-Men at all. Whilst at the same time, it's also like it's almost like telling an origin story of the X-Men and the Brotherhood. Because you've got a team of mutants that gets together and ultimately they end up splitting and are forming kind of like two teams, one that's good, one that's bad. And then we find out that the mutant underground was put together by the actual X-Men, which then kind of lines them up as being the good guys. And the other team, as we find out as it goes through the season. So point this out, I didn't say this at the top of the show. Spoilers! But the show has been out for a while, so you should expect spoilers. One of the characters, Polaris, who has magnet powers. You know, if you go by the comics, and as is suggested within this show as well, it is suggested that her father may be Magneto. So she's now has the kind of attitude that towards humans that the Brotherhood typically has. So she's now split off at the end of this first season to join and form this, basically the Brotherhood. So a team of evil mutants, and then you've got the good team of mutants. So Ross, why don't you tell me what you thought?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I mean, I was telling everybody, make sure you catch up on this show. It's my favourite show since we started watching them in sort of from September this season. And I mean, I'm a big fan of the X-Men. It's probably, apart from maybe Spider-Man, my favourite thing that Marvel have ever produced. Yeah, I loved it from start to finish. I think it really benefited for being a short 13 episodes because there was no filler. It just continued nicely on, and it progressed in a nice steady pace. Also, I thought the special effects were really well done. Like sometimes when you watch like the CW shows, there's a little bit of CGI that you can kind of tell there's CGI. But this, I thought it all worked really well, especially if, like virtually every character in the show has a power. There's only like a few that don't. So I really enjoyed that aspect as well, where,
Well, yeah, it's where they explore the powers as well in quite a nice way. And you've got Polaris and I forget the character's name. The guy with the light powers. Eclipse. When obviously you've got a guy that controls light and a girl that controls magnetism, and when they hold hands, they create an aurora borealis.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, it's clever.
Yeah,
Using CGI in that way rather than having it on all the big explosions and things was quite a nice little touch to explore that world, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they did a good job having the powers in there, but limiting, as with all of the superhero shows, they limit, because that's where the money's going to be spent and all the special effects shot. They have to limit how they use it. They did a really good job at choosing where they spent that money, where they decided to actually use the powers. And I think it did come out pretty good, and it looked pretty cool. Like production value for the show was good, although I would say that it looked like more like a TV series that was done well, as opposed to Fox's other X-Men based show Legion, which is on FX, which looks like it's got a bigger budget. That one looks very cinematic.
It's a lot smaller cast in that one, isn't it? There's only eight episodes.
There's only 8 episodes. So on this first season, there was only 8 episodes, and maybe we'll do an episode on that at another point. But yeah, it's that show had clearly a much bigger budget and production value, and so it felt more cinematic. But even with Gifted feeling more like a TV show, I agree that the use of effects was done very well. They did a really good job with it.
Like you take Thunderbirds for instance, where all he's doing is really tracking and hearing people. And if you forget that one scene where he's like bulletproof and he just goes through a wall like a juggernaut, it's awesome. But all that is it's just it's just a camera work of them just following where they go. It's kind of in like it's almost black and white, isn't it? Where it's just really well done to use his powers. It's just quite a simple.
They just put a filter over the video.
Simple effect, and it works really well. Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you say I quite like the. I think the effects that they use the most are obviously like Lauren's sort of bubble shields, are quite well done, and also when they hold hands and they just become ultimately destructive. That was a very cool effect as well.
And Blink simple. Making her teleports where it looks like she's really struggling to open them. That was really good.
Blink is really cool. I say I quite like this show because like all X-Men shows, I quite like the premise of it because it's not like every other superhero show that's out. It's I've got powers, I'm going to be a hero and save the world. The X-Men stories and comics that I've always loved and grown up with it's very much they are mutants and they're like
they're just trying to survive, aren't they?
Exactly. They don't want to be heroes. They don't want to help. Especially with this incident that happens, obviously lots of people die, and that's why the Sentinel Services is trying to round them all up. Is that they're just trying to survive, all these people with powers, and they end up helping people here and there, but it's mostly for themselves in this show. And I think that's a very clever twist on having powers, where every other show is I've got powers, so I'm going to be a hero and save people.
See it personified a lot in the characters of the Strucker children, Lauren and Andy, throughout the course of that season. Is that they're coming into their powers at the start of it and having to figure out what to do with them and how to use them and whether they should use them for good, especially when they find out that obviously something we can talk about in a bit, the combining their powers together creates this really destructive force.
Yes.
And they start
should
to
they
figure
do
out
it and things like that.
Yeah, and they get an immense rush from doing it, but they don't want to use it because that's one of the things that I quite liked. Was there's a scene, the first time they do it, they're overwhelmed with the power and they get this really surge of we should do it again because it feels awesome when we use this power. And then the second time they're going to use it is in the substation when they're trying to break in and rescue some mutants.
Yeah.
And it's the only way they can get out.
The only way they can get out is to blow it all up. And the one that you think is going down the dark path, Andy, he's the one that breaks away and goes, no, I can't kill anyone, whereas Lauren seems like she wants to do it. And it's just them struggling with overcoming those kind of things is really, really well played, I thought.
Yeah. I quite like the Agent Turner as well, as like, he was sort of the beginning bad guy, and then obviously you have the other guy come into it. But I quite liked his story as well, because you actually feel sympathy for him, especially afterwards, where what was her name? The woman with who could sort of go in, and the dreamer, her.
Yeah,
but she goes in and she's halfway through like screwing him around, and then leaves him, and he forgets his daughter's dead. I was like, Jesus, but that is, being a dad myself, I mean, God forbid ever have to go through it once, but then having to go through it twice is just, I felt so sorry for the guy.
Yeah, and I thought his wife's powerful message as well, when she's like, "What are you doing in our daughter's name?"
Yeah, at the end.
That was really strong.
He actually goes. Yeah, he goes at the end. He actually goes and goes, right, I'm taking all these mutants with me, and actually becomes a good guy. And then that turns out to be like the biggest mistake ever, because the Frost twin comes along and makes them all kill themselves. I was like, jeez. It's crazy. I mean, there was some shocking moments in the series, especially like one where I can't remember what the doctor's name is now, who heads up the institute. It was months since I watched it. The guy who heads up the institute is trying to get them to, Andy and Lauren to use their powers, and he's threatening to kill
Campbell.
Dreamer. Campbell, yeah, threatening to kill Dreamer. I don't think he's actually going to do it. He just shoots her, and she's dead. I was like, what the hell? I don't expect her to die at that moment. I was in shock.
I've never liked Trask Industries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, never trust. But again, you see it from his point of view. You see like a flashback of his brother being ill, and it's about mutation and disease and stuff. And he sees the mutant gene as a disease. He doesn't even see it as evolution. So they've all got their own. I quite like it when bad guys actually they think they're doing the good thing. They don't see themselves as a bad guy, and I always enjoy that more.
It is interesting. They've done a really good job at giving every character in it has got an interesting, different story, and there is
Strong
very clear and understandable motivations for every character, and in that respect, they've done a really good job at making it so that this show is relatable to as wide a group of people as possible, because you've got different ages, you've got different ethnicities, you've got different kind of society like setups and backgrounds and stuff in it. You've got a couple of kids for younger audiences you're going to be able to relate to, either the boy or the girl. They did a good job of, they've got a boy and a girl in there, or if you're a parent, then you could appeal to the parents. If you're a parent that's lost a child, well, you've got that there. If you're a couple that's been in a relationship for a while, well, you've got Polaris and the guy, I forget his name, Eclipse. You've got people coming into new relationships, which is where like Thunderbird and Blink end up, coming into a new relationship by the end. Like they've done a really good job in that respect of making this show as broadly relatable and appealing as possible, and giving everyone sympathetic backgrounds.
One of the things I really liked about it on reflection is the idea that's always been brought up in the films they've really explored is how powerful psychic mutants can be. You have the appearance of the Frost characters, the triplets, halfway through the series, and you start to see, and obviously with Beautiful Dreamer at the start of it, when she tricks Blink into thinking that she's got a relationship with Thunderbird, and then they don't, like most other shows would do, drag that out for years. They just fix that straight away, but then she's obviously dealing with that, and then she comes to terms with the fact she actually likes him by the end of the series. And then later on down the line, you're not really sure, when Polaris starts to go down a dark path towards the Hellfire Club at the end of the season and brings the plane down in the last episode, whether she was being manipulated mentally or she was just going through emotions on her own. It's kind of a very understated, well-played, sort of acted role in that.
Yeah. It was good, and it's interesting as well that you brought up the connection with regards to the movies, because this is a show that is supposedly connected in with the actual movie universe somehow. Yet at the same time, in this timeline, the X-Men have disappeared. So, we've seen from the movie universe, from Days of Future Past, that the X-Men still existed in the future when there were big Sentinel robots going around. In this show, Sentinel robots haven't become big, giant Sentinels at the moment. They're just spider things.
There was a throwaway line in one of the episodes, and I remember this briefly because I saw it literally the other day, where they're talking about how the Sentinel program's gone from the old days of the larger robots. I think they mentioned something like that. Didn't
Yeah, they do.
they? Yeah.
So
Did
it's
they?
like yeah, so it's like
You-
they've evolved. They used them to take out the X-Men and the Brotherhood, and they've now evolved them into those smaller drones. Like
Oh, hang on. There is one film in the X-Men canon where the X-Men have disappeared. Logan.
yeah,
Okay, that's true. They're all dead.
Yeah, but that's because of Charles, not because of the Sentinels. That's him. No, I mean, I'm trying to remember now. I don't remember. But they never actually answer the question of what happens to them, do they? They don't even really answer the question of what happens on that big day where that protest happened, other than
No, there's
lots
a
of
lot of
people
stuff
died.
on Wikipedia in and around the showrunner saying that the X-Men were involved in that incident. Whether they're trying to stop something from happening, whether it's Brotherhood versus X-Men battle out of control, we don't know. But from what I can see, it looks like it's going to start answering those questions in season 2. So fingers crossed.
Yeah,
We'll
which
find
I'm
out.
looking forward to seeing where they go with it. I'm kind of hope. In some ways, I want them to bring in more sort of mainstream X-Men. But at the same time, I think the show's quite unique with the way they brought in all these other characters instead. So
Yeah. I don't think it really needs any of the X-Men in it. Personally, I think that it's like the cast they've got at the moment. They've done a good job, like with this cast, and we having some references to the X-Men at points would make sense. Maybe they would find Xavier's Home for the Gifted. Maybe they find that abandoned at a point or something. Stuff like that. I think would be fine. But
maybe some cameos or like a one-off episode with a couple here. I mean, I'm not talking like. I'm not talking
do you
like
think it would need it?
I don't know. It'd be cool to see. I'm not saying like we need Wolverine and Cyclops in, but maybe some like more B list.
Well, look at it this way.
X-Men.
I mean, Agents of Shield picked up in the last couple of seasons as a result of just having things like Ghost Rider show up. And yeah, Ghost Rider's not an A-list, but just having things like actual connections to that universe in the show really helped pick up what was starting to flail. Not saying
Right,
that Gifted is flailing, but just a couple of cameos or shots here and there.
And Ghost Rider is a very recognizable name, and that was enough to bring me back to Shield for a little bit before I then realised that the show's still not any good, so I stopped.
I beg to differ, sir.
I've seen characters like maybe Iceman or like Havoc or Banshee or
Cable and Deadpool, bring them in.
Oh yeah, they can bring them into from the movie. That'd be pretty sweet. Ryan Reynolds showing up as Deadpool. Hilarious. That I would watch. Maybe Bishop. The next
Domino?
where he comes back. I mean,
Well, they already,
Bishop would be
they already
good.
made a reference to Wolverine in it, so we know he's about somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I'm quite
What was that
pleased with the
reference?
characters we've got.
they dragged the Strucker children into the lab in Trask Industries, and they're like, "Oh, you can't break this wall. You don't worry about unleashing your powers in here because the room's made of adamantium. We found it in this abandoned research facility in Canada." I was like,
Yes.
"Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got claw marks. Where's the claw marks? I was looking for him. I was like, come on, give him some claw marks there somewhere. Nothing. A shame.
When he said that, he basically said that looking at the camera, like, "We found this of adamantium in a abandoned research lab in Canada. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?"
yeah. It's kind of obvious. His character, the Campbell, the Doctor, was quite an interesting character. I thought because when the Strucker dad went to see his dad to talk to him, and you find out that Reed was actually a mutant, and he suppressed his powers. Like the dad suppressed his powers. I did not see that coming at all. And then the fact that this Campbell guy's taken that research and just flipped it, and got a serum now that enhances powers, but it sort of brainwashes them. I thought that was a really clever sort of twist. Because again, the good thing about this show is it kept sort of moving left and right. We did not know where it was going to go. I was kind of disappointed in the last episode when she took down that plane. I kind of thought she should have taken it down and then gone into the plane and killed them, because that guy killed Dreamer, who's like her best friend. I could kind of want the sort of arc to finish with her actually going on the plane and going, like, "You killed my friend," and then kill him. But fair enough. Just blowing a plane up was pretty cool.
Bloodthirsty.
I know. Wanting more.
Wow.
Damn Netflix shows make it more graphic. And I have to say, I don't know if I was underwhelmed in the last episode because I stupidly read somewhere that was meant to be some big cameo from someone, and I was like, "Oh God, he's going to be." I'm like looking out for it for the whole episode, and then I didn't notice it, and I was like, I was kind of disappointed, and I was like, but that made me the last episode disappointing, which was a bit stupid because I was like, it shouldn't be disappointing just because there's no cameo of a person. But those two bits, I kind of was like, it would be nice to have her to actually gone onto the plane and killed him. But the ending when they split up, and even the kids have split up now and gone on opposite teams, was quite cool.
Do you think
Well, you had a feeling that was going to go that way at a point, that they would end up splitting up, specifically because their big, powerful power is combined together, and you had the different attitudes, and the boy always had a chip on his shoulder, like the whole time, and it was very much set up that the girl was good and the boy was going to be bad, which I was a little bit disappointed that it did end up going that way, and I thought, oh, maybe we'll spin it a bit here, and then maybe the girl who has been shown as good throughout the whole thing, maybe she will actually join the bad team. But no, they stuck predictable.
Where I thought they were going when they started using their powers in the substation about halfway through the season, when she was the one that was getting him to use it, and he broke away at the last second, saying, "No, I can't kill these people." So I thought they were going to twist it then, but no, like you say, they kind of went down the route of he's kind of just a bit of a horrible person, really, isn't he?
Well, he embraced the Von Strucker family name, hasn't he? So
yeah.
Did you notice the massive Easter egg of where that little place was they were at the end? Did you see the name on
No.
It was like Jack Kirby Mechanics or something like
That's cool.
that. I was nice Easter egg.
So now, going back to the dad, so he is a mutant, was a mutant at least, and we know that his dad developed a serum to suppress his mutant powers. But we also learned that, that serum ultimately didn't work because his kids ended up having mutant powers. So because that serum didn't work, what do you guys think about whether or not the dad will, at a point, actually start to develop mutant powers?
I thought we were going to see it in the season finale, I have to say. I thought there was going to be some traumatic thing. I mean, I kind of thought it was going to happen when they went to the other sort of hideout when they were on the run going to go to Mexico. And then they started being attacked. And I think Andy got knocked out, and he was looking up, and he was holding him. I kind of thought that traumatic experience was going to release his mutant power, and we're going to find out what it was.
I thought it was when his dad died was going to do it. When his dad got killed in the antique store.
Yeah.
I thought that, because it's normally a traumatic thing, isn't it? That
Yeah.
It triggers it, so that's when I thought.
The dad said, didn't he? Because the I don't know what the guy was now, but the mutant that was suppressing powers was outside. And that means
Pulse.
Pulse. Yeah, so it meant the granddad shouldn't be able to use his powers, and he goes, "Oh, I told you we're different," and he actually used them, and I was like, Jesus. So what? How powerful are they?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because I think they explained, didn't they, say the dad was the only child of the original Von Struckers, so he may have inherited that whole full power, whereas over two people it's split. So
Yeah. Which
Interesting point,
I was
which
talk-
that
I
would
was talking-
suggest then that the dad has the full power.
Exactly. I was kind of confused because I thought I was saying this to Russ when we were talking about it before, but because it was obviously I kind of sort of some reason thought the brother and sister, like the old Von Struckers, had incestually made the granddad. Because I was like, if he's that powerful, it must have been both of them, did it? Right? It couldn't just be one of them. And then, but apparently it wasn't. I totally missed it. I missed that conversation during the series. Because I thought it was just those two by themselves. So they must have just been a bit weird and gone incestual on it.
Huh. Weird.
That means he would
up.
have been super powerful. You had literally a pure bloodline.
So I think if it's got to be like a traumatic experience that's going to trigger the dad to have his mutant powers, I think it makes sense that his dad dying would not be the traumatic thing because he's never been close to his dad. He's pretty much hated his dad his whole life.
Yeah.
That's true.
So he's not going to have that close bond. But his mum, on the other hand, would have pretty much raised him single-handedly. If she then dies in season 2, I could see that being a significant.
Or maybe his wife.
Or maybe when the kids, because now they're on, one's on the good side, one's on the bad. They fight, and one really gets injured, and he blames himself for them splitting up.
What was if they're fighting and Andy's obviously on the bad team now? He accidentally kills his mum by doing something.
Or maybe
maybe
the kids.
Even darker.
Maybe the kids are fighting, and maybe Andy really hurts his sister, and in doing that, that triggers the dad's powers, and then that triggers him to respond unintentionally and direct his powers at Andy, which would then make things worse the rift
Yeah.
between the pair of them, and
Yeah, makes sense.
would turn Andy into setting up to be more of a supervillain, because now his dad's attacked him, even though it would have been unintentionally. And then that would lead the dad, like, that adds to his storyline, as it's very sympathetic as well. Like, oh crap, look what he did.
Because he could also be a little bit conflicted, because like, oh, what should I do? But then when that happens, he just instantly thinks his dad doesn't like him anymore, hates him, attacks him, and that's what drives him down the dark path fully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see Andy being
the main villain in like.
Yeah, I could see him
3.
being the main villain. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
definitely.
ultimately, like he could end up leading the whatever they're going to call themselves.
You think
the
Polaris,
Hellfire clubs.
Polaris will go back to the good guys kind of thing once she has the kid.
They make a big point of saying that the kid has enhanced her powers, hasn't it? So when she gives birth, she's obviously going to have a power drop, which will be interesting to see how that plays out with her sort of character.
The thing is, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know Polaris well in the comic books. Obviously, I've read a couple where she's in it, but I don't know if she's ever had a kid. So, she's always quite young in the comics. When I've read them, she's sort of like late teens.
But I think that's the thing that they're trying to do with this show, is that they're trying to cover a territory that hasn't necessarily been covered. So they've taken characters and aged them a little bit, and given them a little bit more free reign, similar to the approach that Sci-Fi's doing with Krypton. They're taking a well-known property, but setting the story in an area where the comics didn't cover. So kind of a similar thing, I guess, with this. And this is also similar to Legion in a sense, isn't it? Like that. I mean, I don't know.
I haven't finished Legion yet. I'm only on episode 4.
Yeah, I thought I'm on episode 4 as well. Yeah, so desperately need to catch up on that before.
I've got to start watching Legion entirely. But it seems like with Legion Gifted, and we've got New Mutants coming out later this year or next year. When is that due out?
I think it's sometime this year. Yeah, definitely.
That's the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They seem to be going in a different direction with the X-Men series, rather than focusing on the main characters and doing different things with the universe, which I quite enjoy.
Yeah.
It's a smart thing, I think, for them to do. They're building upon the property, expanding upon it, and by expanding on the area that they're focusing on and not just sticking on the main characters, it gives them a lot more freedom. Unlike if they're going to stick with the main characters, and you're still going to get the fans that respond and go like, "Oh, Cyclops still doesn't have the right costume," why isn't Wolverine in yellow and shorter? You're never going to please everyone with the main characters, although they did a great job with Logan. That was a cool movie. But
favorite movie.
That's your favorite X-Men? Oh, favorite superhero all round.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was just so well done. It's shocking because I'm a big DC fan. But I think that is.
I don't think you can get the single tear rolling down a cheek at that ending when she turns the cross sideways.
No, man, I cry at least 3 times in that film, and every time I've watched it, I cry in the same 3 places.
Yeah, the ending of that was very shocking. So sticking with the, as we'll wrap things up on this episode, so last thing, like X-Men, like movie-wise then, and let's say movies and TV shows, like what is your favorite of the X-Men, not including animated?
Yeah, damn it, it's obviously going to be the 90s cartoon, I was going to say that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, everyone's going to say 90s cartoon if we include cartoons. So, what's your favorite X-Men movie or TV show?
Oh, man.
Let's go around the room. Let's start with Robert.
I'll put me on the spot, won't I? Barring Logan, which was an exceptional movie, I still really enjoy and can watch any time X-Men 2.
Okay, cool. X-Men 2 or X-United, wasn't that one?
Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
That was a cool movie. What about you, Stuart?
Well, obviously, as Rob said, Logan's definitely up there as just a standout film. Even though it's just a superhero film, it's just a standout film together. I've always loved X-Men 2, but I think Days of Future Past, the Rogue Cut, is probably my favourite one they've done so far. Just because it brought the two different, the original X-Men movies and the new ones together.
Okay, that's cool. Go on then, Ross, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm tied between this, The Gifted, and First Class. I really enjoyed First Class.
First Class was very cool. I wasn't. I went into that with no expectations. Like I didn't. I managed to somehow avoid all spoilers and was very pleasantly surprised with First Class. I think they did an excellent job at rebooting the X-Men franchise without really rebooting it because it's somehow within the same continuity.
Yeah, I was sort of the same with Logan. I walked in with no expectations at all because, obviously Origins was a horrible movie. The Wolverine was pretty good, but not like the best film ever. So I was like, it's the last one. You know, I'll go and watch it because I watched all the others, and it just blew my mind. It's crazy.
You know what? I actually didn't because X-Men Origins Wolverine was so bad. I haven't watched the Wolverine. I've just avoided it because. More than anything, it's just so burnt out on Wolverine as a character because all the movies, well, like so many of the movies have been about him. The first X-Men movie is about Wolverine joining the X-Men. The second X-Men movie is about finding out how he got his claws and looking back at it. And the third one is, well, that was largely about
it's him and Jean,
Jean Grey, but it's him and Jean. So it's again, he's the main character. Then we had Origins Wolverine. Then we had the Wolverine, and it's like, gosh. Can we just? That's what was like really nice with First Class. Was like, we've limited him to just a silly little cameo in a bar, and
which was an awesome cameo. They kept that really quiet. I did not know that was going to happen.
Yeah, that was, and it was nice, you know. So they got that, and then it was out, and you're like, this is good because now we're actually focused on the X-Men instead of on Wolverine. Yeah. And I get that he's like the most popular of the X-Men. I think that for the standalone comics, isn't it? Sales-wise, for the comics, I think that the Wolverine comics, standalone comics, sell more than the other ones. If I'm correct on that.
I would think so because
it's been a few years since I read that, but yeah, I remember learning at a point that he is sales-wise.
But is that after the movies came out?
Don't know.
Probably.
I mean, the movies have been coming out for so long now.
Yeah. I remember me and Liam going to watch the first one. God, like 1990 something.
1999.
Yeah, I remember.
It was just a guy walking out, going, "Oh my god, that was amazing."
Yeah,
that was the best film ever. That's what started off the whole comic book movie thing. That was probably the
Blade
first big one.
Blade.
Well, yeah.
1998.
It was like the X-Men and then Spider-Man, and then it sort of kicked in with the rest of them.
Yeah, so then wrapping things up here. So then for me, I'd say favourite X-Men movie.
The Last Stand?
You know what? Last Stand was fun. It's not good.
No.
The first 5 minutes is awesome. Movie. The first 5 minutes
is there
wicked.
are so many really cheesy moments in that, which are
casting Vinnie Jones as the Juggernaut.
I mean, that's cheesy. I mean, the fact that they put the Juggernaut bitch in it. From
the dove.
That's the thing. I mean, that movie was fun, and you finally got Beast in it. So Last Stand was a fun movie. It's not a good movie. So it's not a good movie, but it is fun. So, but I'd probably say that my favorite X-Men movie is probably the first one. Just because. I think, like you were saying, Stuart, that when we went and saw it, you came out like that was the first one that really ignited the newer generation of superhero movies. It was X-Men was what had done that. So because before that, the last superhero movie you'd had was Batman and Robin, which kind of killed the superhero genre.
Yep.
But then we got it reignited again with X-Men, and that's what led on to Spider-Man and everything that we've had since. It showed that superhero movies can be done well. You know, they can be taken more seriously. So, yeah, I would say, the costumes and that may not be as true to the comics, but it was a cool movie, and I think it's more, I guess, nostalgia more than anything as to why I put that as my favorite.
Cool.
So that's it. Season 1 of The Gifted is complete. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. Look, you can buy it on iTunes. You can find it on Amazon. If you go look on, that was on Fox. So if you're on the, you can check out the Fox TV app, and you can find some episodes on there. Check it at the right time. You'll see the whole season on there. I'm pretty sure as we get closer to season 2, they'll stick the whole season back on there and give you a chance to fully catch up. But check it out and catch up before season 2 begins later on this year. So if you enjoyed this episode, let us know. If you didn't like it, let us know. Find us across social media. Send us a comment. Give us likes. Tell us your thoughts and subscribe to us. The podcast is available wherever podcasts live. We're on Stitcher Radio, iTunes Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, YouTube. We have a cool video version of it on YouTube. And and across social media, just look for Legends of Podcasting. So that's it from me, and that's it from them. So until next time.